I remember the day Matthew stepped into my life as if it were yesterday. I was tucked away in a cozy little cafe, nursing the cheapest coffee on the menu while attempting to sort through my jumbled thoughts. That's when he walked in, effortlessly resembling the character from a movie scene. There were no dramatic lights or sweeping soundtracks, just the soft jingle of the door and the mingled scents of stale coffee and his cologne filling the air. "Mind if I sit here?" he asked, his smile radiating warmth as he gestured toward the empty chair across from me. "Go ahead," I managed to reply, striving to keep my composure despite the surprise of his sudden appearance. From that moment, we connected as effortlessly as two puzzle pieces clicking into place. We discovered countless shared interests, from binge-watching cheesy TV shows to debating the best pizza toppings, pineapple, of course, being the undisputed winner. Our casual meetings quickly deepened into something more significant, and it felt like we had known each other for ages. Before long, marriage was a serious topic of conversation. But the real challenge awaited me. Meeting his parents felt like stepping into a lion's den with a stake tied to my back. Their smiles carried an unsettling air of judgment, as if they were silently appraising whether I measured up to their expectations. "So, you're the one Matthew can't stop talking about," his mother remarked, her tone icy and less than inviting. "That's me," I replied, doing my best not to let her intimidating presence rattle me. It didn't take long for them to express their desire for a prenup. While I had no interest in their wealth, their approach left a sour taste in my mouth. "I'll sign your prenup," I said, "but here's my condition. If one of us cheats, the cheater owes $320,000. Matthew's expression turned to shock, as if I had splashed him with ice-cold water. "Babe, I'd never cheat on you," he insisted, looking genuinely earnest. "Yeah, well, my ex said the same thing before I caught him red-handed," I shot back. It was all or nothing. Matthew eventually conceded, though his parents were far from pleased. We thought that settled things, but more surprises were in store. One evening, curled up on our creaky old couch, a piece we often discussed replacing but couldn't bear to part with because of the memories, it was easy to get lost in planning our dream trip to Italy. The gentle hum of the TV faded into the background as we animatedly discussed our plans for Catania. "Imagine it, Matthew. The food, the wine, the art. We have to go," I exclaimed, my eyes sparkling with excitement. Matthew chuckled and pulled me closer. "Janice, you had me at food, but let's be real, our bank account is more suited for backyard camping than jet-setting to Catania." I playfully nudged him. "Then we'll save up. We can cut back on things we don't need, like your video games." "Not the video games," he feigned horror. "Take my shirts, my shoes, even my precious coffee maker, but please spare the games." We both laughed. That playful banter was typical of us. Dreaming big while embracing the simplicity of our lives, finding joy not just in grand adventures but also in the little things. On Saturday mornings, Matthew would attempt to cook breakfast. He wasn't exactly a culinary wizard, but he had perfected scrambled eggs and toast, which he served with pride alongside his less than stellar coffee. "I'm feeling scrambled eggs today. What do you think?" Matthew asked as he headed to the kitchen. "Only if you promise not to burn the toast this time," I teased, taking over the coffee duties. One day, while we were doing the dishes, a mundane chore that felt special simply because we were doing it together, Matthew broached a topic we had been dancing around. "Janice, we need to talk about, starting a family," he said, breaking the comfortable silence. I paused, a plate in hand. "I know, it's just scary, isn't it? What if it doesn't work out for us?" Matthew dried his hands on a towel and turned to face me. "Then we'll face it together. But we won't know until we try, right?" "How hard can it be?" he chuckled, affection lacing his voice. "Famous last words, huh?" I replied, knowing that was us, facing whatever life threw our way together. But then his mother began dropping not-so-subtle hints about grandchildren. "Janice, dear, when are you going to give me some grandbabies? You're not getting any younger, she'd say, her voice sweet but her intentions crystal clear. I'd bite my tongue, flash a smile, and chirp, "We're on it, right, Matthew?" He'd chime in, "Mom, chill out. These things don't happen overnight." As time passed, the pressure mounted, not just from his mom but from within ourselves. We both longed for a family, but things weren't unfolding as we'd hoped. Our home often felt tense, especially with Kayla, Matthew's sister, adding to the strain. She had taken up the new hobby of making my life difficult. her sharp words cutting through the peace we tried to maintain. Everything came to a head one Sunday during what was supposed to be a serene and easygoing lunch. Just as we were about to start eating, Kayla barged in uninvited, and the atmosphere tensed immediately. Her eyes swept the room like a hawk surveying a battlefield. "Well, isn't this a quaint little setup?" she sneered, eyeing the modest meal I had prepared. I forced a smile, trying to keep the peace amidst the brewing storm. "It's just a simple meal, Kayla. Nothing fancy. Please have a seat," I said as we gathered around the table. Kayla wasted no time diving into her usual tirade. "You know, Janice," she started, her voice thick with condescension, "I was talking to Mrs. Kathleen the other day. Her grandson just became a dad. It made me think, when will you and Matthew have some good news for us? Time's ticking, you know." My cheeks burned with a mix of embarrassment and irritation. I glanced at Matthew, seeking his support, but he appeared suddenly captivated by his meal. "Mom, seriously," he mumbled, though his tone lacked conviction, and we all sensed it. Unfazed, Kayla pressed on. "I hate to be blunt, but you're not getting any younger. You work hard for your money, Matthew. Why waste it on Janice if she can't fulfill her basic duties as a wife? Hiring help for cleaning and cooking would be much more efficient, don't you think?" That comment was the final straw. "I'm doing my best here, Kayla," I blurted out. "It's not like I don't want children. And as for the house and cooking, I didn't realize marriage came with a job description." Kayla scoffed. "Marriage isn't a free ride, Janice. You have responsibilities, and frankly, you're not meeting them." Tension thickened the air, and tears welled in my eyes, but the deepest wound came from Matthew's silence. When he finally spoke, it wasn't to defend me. "Mom's right. Maybe we should consider getting some help around here. It would take some pressure off you too," he suggested. His words felt like a betrayal, and I suddenly felt starkly alone. As Kayla's visits became more frequent, so did her criticisms. She scrutinized every corner of her home, pointing out flaws. "You call this clean?" she sneered. "Looks like a pixie to me." Then came the jabs about my appearance. "Is that what you're wearing? A wife should dress to please her husband. No wonder Matthew seems exhausted. He comes home to this." I tried to stand my ground. "Kayla, I dress for myself, not for Matthew. He's tired because he works hard, not because of my outfit." But it was futile. Kayla had made up her mind about me, and nothing I said could sway her. Matthew's lack of support cut deep. Every night after his mother left, we would argue. "Why won't you defend me? She's bulldozing over us, and you just stand by." "Janice, she has her ways." "What do you expect me to do? Kick my mom out?" "No, but I expect you to be my partner, to stand with me, not against me." It became clear that this situation was more than just Kayla's disapproval. It was a test of our marriage, a trial of whether we could withstand the relentless barrage of her criticisms. As the weeks passed, it dawned on me that this was not a temporary phase. It was a full-blown assault. If we didn't take action soon, there might be nothing left to salvage. The atmosphere between Matthew and me turned icy, exacerbated by Kayla's intensified critiques. Life at home became unusually tense, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Matthew was keeping something from me. It wasn't just the usual stress from work. There was an unsettling change in his behavior that hinted at deeper secrets. It started subtly with his phone habits. Matthew, who had always been an open book, began stepping out of the room for calls, particularly those from someone named Austin, allegedly a new colleague who had a lot of questions. One quiet evening, trying to keep the conversation light, I asked, "Who's this Austin at work?" Matthew's reaction was instant and telling. His body stiffened, and he looked away, a clear signal of his discomfort. "Just a new guy at the office. Really inquisitive," he answered too quickly, avoiding my gaze. But there were more troubling signs. Matthew, who had previously been indifferent to fashion trends, started transforming his wardrobe. Out went the graphic tees and faded jeans, replaced by neatly pressed shirts, sleek trousers, and even a new cologne that lingered around him each morning. "What's with the new look? Planning to model for a department store catalog?" I joked, trying to mask my growing concern. One morning, as Matthew styled his hair in a new way, I joked, "Planning to model for a catalog." He gave a nonchalant smirk. "Why not spruce things up a bit? No harm, right?" But the late nights began to pile up. "Sorry, love. This project is killing me. I'll be home late," his text would read, night after night. Often, it wasn't until the early hours of the morning that I'd hear the key turn in the door. Something felt off, a gnawing sense of unease that wouldn't fade. Driven by a mix of fear and a desperate need for the truth, I hired a private investigator, a decision that felt like it belonged in a melodramatic detective series. The results were just as dramatic. Inside a plain envelope were photographs and a voice recording. The images showed Matthew with another woman, their closeness unmistakable, while the intimate conversations on the recording shattered any illusions I'd held. Here was a man in love, but not with me. As I sat alone, absorbing the cold truth laid bare on my kitchen table, I realized these pieces of evidence could be crucial if our marriage crumbled into a divorce. The photographs transformed memories of our shared life into jagged fragments of betrayal, and the voice recording taunted me, echoing every tender word he'd ever spoken to me. Yet I kept this devastating discovery to myself, bearing the weight of heartbreak alone. I wasn't ready to confront him. Not yet. I needed time to plan and figure out how to approach the likely end of our marriage with some semblance of grace. In the days that followed, Matthew and I continued our charade. He wore the mask of the affectionate husband while I played the role of the content wife, our conversations peppered with artificial laughter and hollow words. "Everything all right?" he would ask, concern lacing his voice. "Just tired, you know. Work's been crazy," I would reply, the lie tasting sour in my mouth. Then one day, as I passed by Matthew's slightly open office door, the truth spilled out. He and Kayla were discussing not trivialities, but the future of our relationship, with grave seriousness. "I can't do this anymore, Mom," Matthew confessed, his voice heavy with weariness. "It's not just about Janice not having kids, it's more than that. I feel like we're just coexisting, not truly together." Kayla's response was razor sharp. "But think about it, Matthew. She hasn't given you a child. What else does she bring to our family?" Her words were cold and calculated, and the weight of their implications confirmed the lonely path ahead. This wasn't merely a rough patch, it was a profound disconnect that might be irreparable. As I stood there, feeling the fabric of our marriage unraveling, I knew tough decisions awaited me, decisions that would redefine my future. "We can't miss out on a generous gift from her, can we?" Kayla's cynical tone pierced me deeply. They had a plan: keep me around just long enough to enjoy the lavish gifts from her upcoming birthday celebration before cutting ties without a second thought. "Just a bit longer," Kayla had said, her venomous smirk etched into my memory. I stood frozen, fury and disbelief coursing through me. It was clear they intended to discard me as easily as crossing off an item on a grocery list. The stain of betrayal ignited a fiery determination within me. They saw me as nothing more than a pawn in their twisted game, but I was resolute in proving I was no one's fool. A few days later, we sat down for a family dinner that felt more like a scripted play than a warm gathering. Kayla, with a calculated smile, turned to me. "So, Janice dear, what do you have planned for my birthday? Something special, I hope." I met her gaze with a calmness that belied my inner turmoil. "Actually, Kayla, I've been thinking about arranging a dinner at the city's most exclusive restaurant, an evening you won't forget." Her eyes sparkled with greedy anticipation as she exchanged a satisfied glance with Matthew. They thought they had cornered me, but little did they know, I was already steps ahead in a different game. "Oh, Janice, that sounds wonderful. Just close family, keep it intimate," Kayla purred with feeding sweetness. "Absolutely, Kayla. We'll make it a night to remember," I replied, the words tasting like ashes in my mouth. The weeks leading up to Kayla's 60th birthday felt like a march toward a day of reckoning, each of her smirks and Matthew's dismissive nods fueling my resolve. My plan was simple yet bold: host the lavish dinner as a supposed gesture of goodwill, then spring a monumental surprise. As the plans unfolded, the devil lay in the details. The night before the party, our home was charged with silent tension. Matthew lounged on the couch, absorbed in his phone. "Everything ready for tomorrow?" he asked, not bothering to look up. "You could say that," I replied, my voice steady despite the storm brewing within me. The day arrived, and as guests filled the opulent dining room we had reserved, the air was thick with anticipation. My heart raced, not with nerves but with the thrill of the imminent revelation. Kayla, basking in the spotlight, reveled in the grandeur. "Oh, Janice, you've truly outdone yourself." "This place is divine," she announced, her voice carrying across the room. As the evening progressed, laughter and stories filled the air, masking the undercurrents of tension swirling around us. Just as dessert plates were cleared, the moment I had been waiting for arrived. The waiter approached discreetly, whispering the staggering costs of the dinner. $10,000. I handed over my credit card, unnoticed by most, when suddenly, as if on cue, Matthew dropped his bombshell. Janice, it's time for the truth. I'm done with this. With us. I want a divorce, he declared, his words cutting through the festive noise and suffocating the atmosphere. Before I could fully process his statement, Kayla interjected sharply. Well, now that it's out in the open, it's best you leave, Janice. Tonight is about family, and you're no longer part of ours. The room fell into stunned silence, every gaze fixed on me. Yet I refused to crumble. With composure I didn't know I possessed, I prepared to face the storm. I hardly felt the weight of my decision as I rose from my seat, nodded curtly, and walked out without a word. The chill of the night air hit me, a stark reminder of the finality that loomed ahead. As I made my way to a friend's apartment, the night closed in around me, reflecting the cold journey I was about to undertake. But I walked on, resolved to forge a new path from the wreckage of my past. With steely determination setting in, I finalized my plans and packed my essentials, transforming the numbness of betrayal into decisive action. This was not just the end of one chapter, it was the beginning of another. As I zipped up my last suitcase, my phone buzzed insistently. I tried to ignore it, but curiosity got the better of me. Kayla's frantic voice blared from the other end. Janice, the payment didn't go through. You need to fix this right away. Her demand rang hollow and ironic in the moment. Anticipating this move, I had already blocked access to our shared accounts, knowing it might be Matthew's first line of defense. Oh, Kayla, what a shame. But since I'm no longer part of the family, as you've made abundantly clear, I'm afraid you'll have to sort this out yourself. The fury crackling through the phone was almost a melody to my ears after the betrayal I'd endured. The chaos that followed, stories of the restaurant staff demanding payment, Kayla's escalating tantrums, and the police arriving to calm her down, was the perfect ending to the farce my marriage had become. In the end, it was Matthew and Kayla who scrambled to cover the bill, a fitting consequence for their deceit. The morning after the dinner felt like waking up after a storm. I returned to what had once been our shared home for one last time, divorce papers in hand, ready to confront the remnants of our relationship. The atmosphere was electric, almost palpable, as if it could be sliced with a knife. Matthew and Kayla were in the middle of a heated discussion, their animosity thick in the air. You've got some nerve showing up here after last night, Matthew spat, his expression twisted with anger. Great, you've humiliated us in front of the entire city. Do you understand what it's like to have the police called because of your antics? People were laughing, Kayla added, her words sharp as knives. I faced their fury with a calm I barely felt inside. Is shame your primary concern right now? I retorted, tossing the divorce papers on the table and placing the damning photos of Matthew's infidelity on top. Matthew's face drained of color as he picked up the photos, his mother looming over his shoulder. Their anger quickly dissolved into shock, then morphed into panic as the gravity of the situation sank in. And let's not overlook the prenup, shall we? I continued, my voice steady and unwavering. You stray, you pay, precisely $320,000. Kayla's face twisted into a snarl. You wouldn't dare. You can't do this to us. Oh, but I can, and I will, I replied, my tone devoid of warmth. Recognizing the seriousness of the situation, Matthew shifted his approach. Please, let's discuss this. We can find a solution. A bitter, mirthless laugh escaped me. Find a solution. Do you think a few words can undo everything? No, Matthew, it's over. Kayla, ever the manipulator, tried to soften her tone, dripping with false concern. Janice, darling, think about what you're doing. This will destroy us. That ship has sailed, Kayla. You should have thought about that before. Their pleas turned to desperate entreaties, frantic attempts to salvage whatever dignity remained, but the time for words had passed. The moment for action had arrived. In the end, Matthew had no choice but to borrow money from his parents to settle the financial arrangements with me. As I walked away from that house for the last time, check in hand, I felt an immense weight lift from my shoulders. After everything that had transpired, I was finally free. I used the money from Matthew to make a down payment on a modest yet cozy place of my own. It's incredible how much peace you can find in a home that's entirely yours, where every nook feels like a sanctuary from the storms of a past life. Now, life is quieter, and that's exactly how I prefer it. I have a job that keeps me busy, friendly neighbors who greet me with smiles, and a small garden that's mine alone to cultivate. Occasionally, I hear bits of gossip about Matthew and Kayla. Just the other day, while picking up coffee at the local cafe, a popular spot in the community, I ran into someone from the old neighborhood. After exchanging pleasantries, they leaned in, their voice dropping to a hush. "Hey, have you heard the latest about your ex and his mom?" Their eyes sparkled with intrigue. I raised an eyebrow, intrigued yet detached. "Can't say that I have." "Do tell." They seem to be at odds. Apparently, Kayla isn't too pleased with Matthew's new girlfriend. Rumor has it they've been arguing nonstop. It puts your past situation in a new light, doesn't it? We quickly moved on from the topic, but as I walked away with my coffee, I felt a deep sense of relief. There was a time when such news would have disturbed me, but now it was just another story in someone else's drama. These days, my biggest concerns revolve around whether my tomatoes will ripen before the squirrels get to them, or if I'll ever master yoga without looking like a newborn deer. Life is simpler, quieter, and significantly more satisfying on this side of the chaos.
My name is Susan. I'm 35 years old and I live at home with my parents. Right now, I'm living peacefully with my dad, Paul, and my mom, Paula. But the truth is, I have a painful past. I lost my husband and was kicked out of my parents' house. Whenever I think back to that day, my heart still feels like it could burst from the sadness and regret. I didn't know what to say back then, but it was exactly 5 years ago. "Ken, why? You left me. You promised we'd be together forever. You wouldn't leave me." One day, he finally admitted he wasn't feeling well, so I rushed him to the hospital, and everything fell apart after that. It seems Ken's illness was advancing rapidly, and he was suddenly told he didn't have much time left. While we were not accepting the news, and just a few weeks after getting the diagnosis, Ken passed away. Ken and I were known as the couple with the sweetest relationship in our neighborhood, and we had promised to live happily ever after growing old together. At that time, I couldn't even imagine being separated from my beloved Ken. I was lost during the funeral, unable to process the reality. I was so heartbroken that I barely remember how I got through the service. But that's when the real trouble began. My grieving mother-in-law and sister-in-law Amy showed no concern for my feelings. Right after the funeral, Mrs. Taylor dropped a bombshell on me. "Now that Ken is gone, there's no place for you here. Things being what they are, you should just leave." Wait, what? Why are you saying that? "Ken is gone. You're a stranger now. You're no longer part of this family. There's no point in keeping you around. It's irresponsible to act like everything will stay the same." "What are we going to do about the bills now?" "That's true. Keeping you as a housewife isn't just an extra expense, and honestly, you're in the way. Everyone else is saying goodbye. Why aren't you?" Why is this happening? It's awful. My body and soul are completely shattered. It was actually my mother-in-law's idea for us to move in together in the first place. She said it would be more convenient in case something happened. That's why we ended up living with her after we got married. Ken reluctantly agreed, but he also knew we didn't have much choice because she had used up his dad's inheritance before we got married and was struggling financially. Ken knew this, but out of kindness, he chose to live with his mother. Maybe I shouldn't have left her alone, but the worst part? When my sister-in-law found out we were moving in, she came back home and announced she'd be living with us too. She'd been living alone, working part-time, but now she was there as well. I moved in with them without really having a say, and it felt like I was expected to be taken care of by Ken. For 5 years of marriage, I was full of frustration. I did all the cleaning, laundry, and cooking on my own. He kept apologizing to me, feeling squeezed himself, but we had just started planning to move out together when all of this happened. But now, living with my parents, I'm thankful they kicked me out of that house.
"Even though various things happened, you made the right decision to leave home. There was nothing good about living there."
Maybe that's why I'm enjoying my life and my work so much now. I was able to get through it all, and I know coming back to my parents was the right decision. Thank you so much.
There's no need for thanks. Life has been hectic, but it's true that experience teaches you so much. That is right.
My parents welcomed me back and supported me through everything. I'm truly grateful for that, and I owe a lot to them being a supporter. I don't think I could have made it through all of this on my own. I was kicked out of my in-laws' house, but after that I spent a year returning my mind. Eventually, I decided to become a certified care worker, and now I enjoy my job. There are times when I don't get enough sleep because of work, but little by little the painful memories are starting to fade away. But then I happened to run into my mother-in-law and sister-in-law when I went out. I just wanted to get out and have a little fun dressed up by myself, but it turned into the worst situation. Oh no, it's them.
Is that really Susan? She seems to be doing well. She's all dressed up trying to look fashionable. You still look sad. She hasn't remarried in the 5 years since then. I don't think other than Ken can like her.
What's wrong with these two? How can I be remarried? I still love Ken. Ken, the two of us who used to laugh together, it's like you're still with me. I keep thinking about us, but these two are part of the past. Just leave me alone. When I was shocked and silent, they started asking me questions.
So, Susan, are you working now? You're not just depending on your parents, are you?
I'm doing my job just fine. I got certified as a care worker, by the way.
Wow, you wanted to jump into such a tough field. As expected, Susan can be a good match for that. Maybe you're better suited for caring for the elderly. Yeah, Susan might just be perfect for that.
I was so stunned I had no words and could only sigh. Care work is a wonderful job. You help people and make them smile. Sure, it's tough sometimes, but it's rewarding. There's no reason for these two to laugh at me. Honestly, no matter what I say, they'll never understand. They just don't get people's feelings. After throwing some mean words my way, they left right in front of me. It was supposed to be a nice day off, but they ruined my mood. I didn't even stick around to see the movie I planned to watch. I went straight home.
What's wrong? You're back so early. You look a little pale, but maybe you're not feeling well. But you went out with high hopes, and then what happened?
I ran into Mother and Amy. That ruined everything. I told my parents about our meeting, and as we talked, I got more and more upset. I could tell they were trying to comfort me, but in the end, they were the ones who got the most angry.
Even though it's been 5 years, they still... Oh, she's just a woman who never changes, be that's her style or her attitude.
She looks down on me, mocks me, and takes pleasure in it.
Karma will come for them someday. That's just how the world works. You're doing great, Susan. God's watching over you. Someday, they'll get what's coming to them.
You're right. They don't matter anymore, so there's no point in worrying about them. Thanks, Mom and Dad. I felt lighter, realizing it was a waste of energy to stay caught up in their drama. But a few weeks later, just as I thought they'd received their divine punishment, I got a phone call from my sister-in-law.
Susan, it's me. Can you help me?
It was 5 a.m. My sister-in-law was half asleep and looked panicked. I couldn't help but notice who it was. I answered the call without checking to see if it was from someone else, but I didn't know what was going on. Well, I know it's not something happy or fun, but when you ask me for a favor, it's usually a problem.
Susan, Mom's in a situation where she needs nursing care. You're qualified to care for her. Please help me. I can't do it all by myself, so please come back home to take care of your family. It's not my mother who needs help, it's your mother-in-law.
She had a stroke and now suffers from behavioral disorders due to paralysis. Her condition was stable until recently, but now she needs 24 hours care, and there's no end in sight. My sister-in-law was on the verge of tears. It seems like she couldn't communicate with me before, but now she's calling me family after kicking me out. She said forgive me, but I said no. You're having a tough day, aren't you? You've been lazy, but now you've finally got something to do, right? I'm glad for you.
It's not the time for that. Even if you can't stand me, you're still family. Please, the only people I can rely on are family, and you're my family too. I need someone to help me. I can't handle this all on my own.
I can't go now that things are falling apart.
I apologize, but please quit your current job and help take care of Mom immediately. She's family, so you should do that. You're a caregiver, aren't you?
I was truly disgusted by these people who turned their backs on me when they were in trouble. In a situation like this, I decided to just say what I really wanted to say. You were the one who told me I am not a family. Why would you ask me to take care of someone else's mother? She's your own mother. You should take care of her yourself. If you don't have enough help, hire a professional.
What's wrong with that? She's your family.
You're the ones who kicked me out of the family circle.
But I don't have the money to hire someone. If I can't afford to send her to a care facility, I have to do everything myself. I don't want to hear you say that. I'm asking for help, so why can't you just help me?
It sounded like she was desperate, but I thought it would be a waste of time to keep talking about it, so I decided to end the conversation. I said what I needed to say, but I didn't want to get dragged into their mess. I hung up the phone. She didn't have the money to put her mother in a facility or hire care, so my sister-in-law was forced to take care of her by herself. My mother-in-law is sick and can't communicate, so it must be really tough for her now. I heard rumors that she's been crying every day, struggling to keep up, and is worn out. It's only a matter of time before she faces serious consequences for neglecting the care she can't provide. I imagine it's tough, but everything is restricted when you don't have money. Now that I've completed my 5-year revenge, I can finally clear my mind and feel refreshed.
As for Amy, it's definitely tough being alone.
They look down on the work of caregiving, but I'm sure they'll understand now.
Old age is a problem that comes to everyone, but it's not your problem anymore, so you don't need to worry about it.
I understand, but my mother and father don't need to worry about their old age.
What do you mean by that?
I got certified as a caregiver so that I could take care of people in their old age. But no matter what, the 3 of us will always be there for each other. I want you to stay as healthy as possible, even if you're tired, so you can live in this house. Thank you for watching. What kind of strange turn will Susan's life take next? Please enjoy the next episode.
Hey, don't you think you shouldn't have that kind of attitude?
It was my mother who was the first to get angry. She got more angry and confronted my parents-in-law and Mark, but the Mark family didn't seem to have any objections at all. When she does that, my father comes back, invites me, and says in a voice that even the dragons can hear, "Let's go home."
There's no need to deal with these people. Let's go home.
It's a meeting between my 2 families, and I was wondering if this restaurant would be good. My parents have their own preferences, so I guess it would be better to have something like that, analytical cuisine, or something like French, but I don't mind.
Well, it doesn't matter if it's not a local family restaurant or something.
Yeah, my name is Grace, and I married my boyfriend Mark, whom I met at work a few months ago. He hasn't shown any interest in it, so it's almost like a reverse proposal. I decided to take a seat at the restaurant, but for some reason I had to leave everything up to me, starting from the date and time of choosing the restaurant. Since I don't like to make decisions, I didn't really worry about it, so I made a reservation at a restaurant I had been to several times before. But when I arrived at the restaurant at the scheduled time, we found that his family was already there. They told me they were sitting at a table, but I couldn't keep them waiting, so we hurried to our reserved seats. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. The Mark family didn't even give me a tip. When I talked to him, he just stared at me.
I'm so sorry to have kept you waiting.
My parents hurriedly called for the waiter.
What would you like to drink?
When my parents asked what they wanted, his family continued to ignore us. They just glared at the waiter silently and seemed to be leaving.
Excuse me for a moment.
Perhaps my father couldn't stand the awkwardness, so he left the table.
You don't have that kind of attitude, do you?
It was my mother who got impatient first, so she forced herself to confront my parents-in-law and Mark, but they didn't seem to have any respect for her. Then my father came back and signaled us, and in a voice that even the dragons could hear, he said,
Let's go home. There's no need to deal with these people. We're not even 1 meter long, so let's go home.
But I'm confused. My mother and I were dragged out of the store by my father, who pulled me by the arm.
Actually, I just heard from the store clerk earlier.
My father was going to tell us a certain fact. Mark called me an hour later.
By the way, where have you been? We've been there ever since. Are you making fun of us?
No, that's our line. Why are you continuing to ignore us? I mean, I have no intention of marrying you.
So what are you talking about? We ignored you for a second. Why are you bending your head, you kid?
You don't really like me or anything, so you tried to marry me? It was all about the money, right? That must have been a coincidence, right? Mark was clearly at a loss. You married me because my father was the president of the company. In fact, my father owns a local restaurant. He's the president of several stores, and he's making a fair amount of money. And if I may say so myself, I think I'm from a wealthier than average family. My father is the president of the company, so it seems that you approached me for the money. It seems that you were disappointed because we were not so rich than you thought.
How do they know that? You're spying or secretly filming us. What are they going to do by monitoring us?
You're so suspicious. We're not doing that. That store is run by my father. Mark was at a loss for words. Didn't I say that? I thought I said it.
You are lying. It doesn't make any sense.
He was just casually listening to it, but here it is. There was no point in blaming him, so I decided to explain it properly. He asked the staff to prepare the best seats for me and you.
So, what did you find about that woman's house?
The fact that I had misjudged our parents' house was that it was just an ordinary house you could find anywhere. It had a garden, so they weren't particularly poor, but she talked like she had money, but she was quite normal.
It's a scam.
If she doesn't have any money, then she's just a plain old woman. I wonder what kind of face she'll have now that she's cheated on her husband. It's true. She was in a hurry to get married in her old age anyway, so she told a lie that didn't exist. There are some shocking women out there who just hang their heads.
I'm sorry I live in a ordinary house.
I guess it's your fault that you live in a shabby house, but my parents were also destroyed.
I don't have the words to say anything to make me open up again. My father isn't the kind of guy who builds flashy pictures like a wealthy businessman, but instead he's the kind of guy who maintains a balance between play and work. He owns vacation homes in various places. If you think a lie, I'll send you a photo too. When I said that, Mark immediately panicked and changed his attitude.
I'm sorry, Grace. I didn't mean to do that.
What are you saying now? It's really bad.
Even I will tell my parents to apologize to you.
Do you think I'll forgive you by apologizing now?
Please, please.
So I hung up. Of course, I blocked the contact, and so I cut ties with Mark. It was supposed to have happened, but Mark and I had gotten married at work, and I realized that this was going to cause me trouble. I moved out of the house I had been living in and started living at my parents' house. We managed to get by without talking much, but luckily we were transferred to the same office, so we didn't interact much. One day, when I was about to go to work as usual, I found a large amount of garbage and cigarette butts disposed at my front door. This brand. The cigarette butts were from a brand that Mark often smoked. I'm sure he did it. I've been keeping my distance as much as possible, but I can't stand this anymore. Good morning!
Oh, good morning, Grace.
Why? He was in our department and he was talking to a member of the team. What's the matter? Here you go, whatever. Just look at this. I showed you a picture of the scene where the trash was being dumped. You did this, right?
Oh, what are you talking about?
Just because you got dumped for me, you think something like this will be tolerated.
You're suspicious of people even when you have no proof. Evidence that you directly stopped me from throwing away trash. I don't know what you're saying, Grace.
There's no conclusive proof that Mark did it. The other employees keep peeking at us with interest as we argue. She's a terrible person. I can hear the female employees whispering to each other. Maybe Mark spread unfounded rumors while I was away. The fact is that Mark is good at his job and has a good relationship with people within the company. He has been promoted more than me, so he has a higher level of trust within the company.
That's terrible. You see, that girl is saying too.
I'm sorry.
Why don't you just take it easy? It's not about you anyway. Besides, your father also said that he was the president, but he was doing something bad behind the scenes anyway. I wonder if you can't think logically anymore, even if you didn't do it. I'd like to hear your reasoning.
However, the other employees were smiling at me. Probably not even one of my allies was on my side. No, I'm sure it was just me acting too quickly, without having any proof, but I'm sure I'm going to go back to work.
So you blame someone for a crime and not even apologize?
I'm sorry. I gritted my teeth in frustration and bowed my head while enduring tears of frustration. From then on, everyone at the company started ignoring me and insulting me so that I could hear them. Still, I continued to work with all my might. I even went so far as to ask another employee to my face why I hadn't stopped working. My manager also encouraged me to resign softly, but I continued to work at the company. At the same time, they did want not only to spend time after work, but also to go home at the same time. And the day came finally.
Grace, can you come a little?
Yes. I was called to manager's room.
I will ask directly, but do you realize that you were destroying the atmosphere of the company? I'm really glad that Mark doesn't seem to have any bad thoughts of you. He's a big-hearted person.
I see.
People don't want to work at the company anymore because of you. I understand that the relationship is shrinking and the relationship of trust is decreasing day by day.
I see.
Thank you for your understanding. Now, please fill out this resignation letter.
I'm sorry, I understand. Thank you. Please send me the video. I'm sorry.
Even though you've already given up, I think it's insane for you to answer the phone while your boss is talking.
I'm sorry, but I like the manager to take a look at the screen. I'm showing you this.
What is this?
So, would you please call Mark too?
I already said I would forgive this lady. Can you please take a look at this?
The footage shows a scene in front of my house. It showed that Mark and his parents are scattering the garbage.
Hey, what's this?
Mark questioned me with a pale face. This is the security camera footage. Just like you said, I just brought the evidence.
Oh, what's the proof? You don't have a security camera in your house.
You're really lazy. It's true that my house doesn't have a security camera, but neighbor had the one who had one installed. When he checked the security camera, he saw this and told my parents.
Whatever you like, it's all fake. Your family must have been pretending to be us and making up the evidence. That's right, you guys. They're such rotten people that they're going to do something like this.
In fact, your parents have specifically approved of this. It was my parents who contacted your parents. At first they were complaining about it being fake, but when I said I would report it to the police, it seems they just apologized. The truth is that the parents and their children are all worthless people. Mark is trembling. That's right, I'm about to quit this company, so now's the only time to apologize.
I'm sorry. I was really disappointed in you, Mark. I'd like to talk to you a little bit.
I left the teary-eyed Mark and left the conference room. In the end, Mark received a strict warning from the company. After that, everyone at the company looked at him badly. A few months after I quit my job, I was contacted by a certain person.
Hello, it's been a while since I last saw you. How are you doing?
It's been a long time since I've seen you, manager. Thank you. My job change went well.
Actually, Mark was fired.
Oh, was he?
He was misdirecting the company's money. Actually, he was using money in stocks and exceeding his debts. That's why he decided to put his hands on the company's money. Well, I didn't actually see it, but apparently he was running around in our office and said it was all your fault. He might come to your house.
It's okay. We're making preparations. Now open the door, you idiot.
Our family has suffered a lot because of you. That is right.
You should pay for it.
They keep banging on the door and shouting loudly. They were running wild, but when I called the police, they ran away.
How can she do this kind of thing? What?
They probably got caught. Once I was safe, I answered the front door. Oh, embezzlement. It's all about criminals and their families, right? Thanks to you, I've come to think that it's better to think about crime prevention at home. I'm glad we've installed a new security system. We've also installed 10 security cameras. Then, Mark and his parents were roughly shoved into a police car. Mark and his parents were then arrested for theft and property damage and anti-nuisance ordinance. Mark tried to settle the matter with me, but of course I didn't buy into the idea and instead paid compensation. After deciding to get the money, I heard rumors that Mark and his friends had taken on debts that they could never repay due to the amount of compensation they had to pay to us at the store next door, and the inconvenience fees to the surrounding residents in addition to the original debt. Currently, they are forced into a cheap apartment with his parents, who seem to have no desire to work at all, and are trying hard to make ends meet through manual labor, but they constantly argue with each other. Meanwhile, I am changing jobs, and my parents, who are living happily and energetically, are also working together at my company. My older brother took over my parents' business, so they are living happily at their vacation house.